I once sat in a room and I had just played something that I had been working on for days, if not weeks. And the response I got wasn't applause, it wasn't even silence. Somebody laughed and then said, "Man, that doesn't even sound black." And the worst part, I went home and changed the song. I want you to think about two artists, the Police and the Isley Brothers. Now tell me which one sounds black to you, and then ask yourself, why did you answer that way? Well, my name is John Paul Pryor, and this is Culture in Minor Keys, where we celebrate Black art, Black music, and culture through the eyes of a musician and a storyteller. And today, I'm going to tell you about the hardest lesson I ever had to unlearn. See, I grew up on the east side of Indianapolis, and the soundtrack to my childhood was undeniable. The Isley Brothers, Earth, Wind, and Fire, the Ohio Players, Motown. That was the water that I was baptized in. But I also had this other side. I loved listening to the Eagles, to Bachman Turner Overdrive, to Joni Mitchell, the Beatles, Genesis. And then somewhere along the way, I discovered my favorite band of all time, The Police, and that was it for me. Sting's voice, Stewart on drums, Andy on guitar, incredible. That minimalist production, magnificent. Reggae and rock and jazz and all at once. I was gone. And then I discovered Rush, and decades later, my absolute favorite singer alive today, Seal. So when I started making music, you can probably guess what happened. I was making music that sounded like me, which meant it sounded like all of the things that I had taken in, the Isleys and the Police and Joni Mitchell and everything else in between. As a young singer songwriter, my musical ear had evolved. My production leaned more towards the British Wall of Sound, where the productions and the aesthetic was clean and atmospheric, and the drums weren't hitting, the way a lot of R&B hits were at that time. I mean, there was no chest thumping, and they were more measured and controlled. And when I shared those compositions with people that I respected, people in my musical community, I didn't get critique. I didn't get the chord progression could be stronger. I got dismissal. That doesn't sound black. The drums don't hit right. Who is this even for? And here's the part that still gets me. I listened to them. I went back and tried to make the music that fit a certain mold. I tried to tone down the parts of my sound that felt most like me because they didn't feel black enough. And that is a lesson that I had to unlearn. Let me be real clear about something. There's nothing wrong with sounding like a particular genre if that's the intent. That's an individual choice. I'm just here to expand the conversation because here's what I knew. Even when I was second guessing myself, black music has never been a monolith, not even close. Miles Davis didn't sound like Little Richard. Stevie Wonder didn't sound like Nina Simone. Prince didn't sound like anyone on the planet. Interestingly enough, even Jimi Hendrix was told that he was playing white people's music. Think about that. Jimi Hendrix being told his guitar didn't fit into a particular mode or a particular genre. See, the thing is, the same people who built American music, who gave rock its foundation, jazz its vocabulary, the world, the blues, were consistently being told they were doing it wrong because of their skin color, and oftentimes by people who had that same skin color. So let me ask you something, and I really want you to sit with this. Is it black music because of how it sounds, or is it black music because of who made it? Because those are two very different questions, and how you answer them says everything about what we've been taught to believe about black artistry. Here's what most people don't talk about when it comes to my British influences. Where did the Beatles get their sound? Where did the Rolling Stones come from? Where did Sting draw from? Blues, soul, gospel, jazz, rock, Black American music. Sting studied jazz. The Beatles were obsessed with Little Richard and Chuck Berry. Genesis was built on soul harmonies, rock and fusion. The very sound that some people told me was too white, it came from black musical influences. So when I was making music influenced by the Police, by that British wall of production, I was in a very real way making music influenced by the music that influenced them, which traces back to black culture. Because we all know culture shapes sound and others build upon that culture with their experiences and their exposure given to them from other aspects of life or other creative contributions. So, if this is resonating with you, if you've ever felt like your taste, your sound, your voice didn't fit the box somebody else built, hit subscribe because this is exactly what we do here. We go deeper, we push past the surface, and truthfully, I'm glad you're here. So, being told that my music wasn't Black, what did this statement teach me? It taught me that Black authenticity is ever expanding, both culturally and individually. And what is deemed not Black enough is actually very shallow and limiting. Because what I believe now, what I lean on when I make music is this: Black authenticity is in the story, it's in the humanity, and in the intention of the work, and to those whom you're trying to reach. When Seal sings, there's something in his voice that carries everything: the pain, the survival, the beauty, the longing. That's about soul. And real soul doesn't have a racial criteria. I discovered that everything I make comes from a cultural and an individual experience. When I sit down and write something that sounds more like the Police than the Ohio Players, it embodies a truth that is not a monolithic belief or a requirement. I'm telling you this because I think some of you have felt this way. Whether you're a musician, a writer, a painter, a designer, someone has looked at something you created and said, that's not really such and such enough, not Black enough, not country enough, not hip hop enough, not whatever enough. And you went home and you changed it. If you're still doing that as a young creative, I'm telling you now, don't. Your specific influences, your specific childhood, your specific sound, that is your culture, that is your art. The most powerful creative voices in history weren't the ones who fit the mold. They were the ones who expanded it. As we know, Black music is not a monolith, and neither are you. And so that's the lesson that I want you to take away from this video, because it was one of the hardest lessons that I ever had to learn. So I'd love to know what's a lesson you've had to unlearn artistically. Drop it in the comments. And if this felt like something you needed to hear, share it with somebody else, and I'll see you in the next video.